friends. Welcome. This is Archangel. Thank you so much for being here with me. Let's keep this rave pumping, shall we? So, you think mutilation and depreciation of male anatomy only happens in movies or entertainment? Do you think that by turning off the TV or avoiding pop culture, that the slander and degradation of the male anatomy that I chronicled in the previous junk files will simply disappear? Ah, there is much to learn, young Jedi. Let's see how our slander, mockery, and mutilation of the male anatomy spills over into real life. Male devaluation is reality. How can we know this? By the thoughts, words, and actions of everyday people surrounding us. Again, more segments from Green Eggs and Man, Chapter 2. Cultural devaluation of the male anatomy absolutely translates into real everyday thoughts and actions. Hatred of males focused on their genitalia does not stop in the media. Bigoted comments from folks in the grocery store simply do not bleed off into nothingness. Audacity in thought converts to audacity in action. Anybody savvy enough to do an internet search, including my coworker's 3-year-old nephew and his one-eyed cat, can find all manner of disrespect for the male genitalia. Whether it be males mocking or injuring their own anatomy, or whether they are mocked and injured by others. You can find all kinds of real-life males getting their junk injured, mutilated, or lodged in actual places, much like we see in the movies. We see male sexual anatomy as worthless, hence the name junk. Something that is considered holy and sacred is treated with tenderness and respect. You do not go around roughhousing holy body parts or cavalierly sticking holy body parts in anything you possibly can. We value female genitalia, so females respect and protect their anatomy. You don't see females sticking every object they can think of up their vagina for laughs and giggles or on a dare. You can, however, find males of all ilks sticking their genitals in gas tanks, hot tub jets, tree knot holes, or getting them caught in zippers, doors, or Chinese finger traps. We devalue male genitalia because we devalue males. And devaluing males is the first critical step towards utilizing them for utility, then disposing of them. Thus, males disrespect and mistreat their own anatomy. It's not hard to see this societal theme playing out across the globe. After seeing so much devaluation of male anatomy in our culture, males flippantly disrespect their anatomy in everyday conversations, perfectly mirroring our entertainment. Someone is incessantly chattering about cutting balls off, ripping balls off, breaking balls. In real life, as in movies, the conversational solution to everything is testicle damage. What do you do if your neighbor poisons your dog or your contractor pads the bill? What do you do if the bank teller gives you the wrong change? Some young man violates your daughter or anybody touches your motorcycle without permission? What's the solution to someone who tailgates you in traffic? Or a coworker who doesn't immediately do cartwheels over your new haircut? Why, you cut their balls off, of course! What do you do if you break and enter a sporting goods store or want to change the appearance of your Christmas tree? Rip the balls off. No situation is too big or too small to contemplate cutting off someone's balls. At the very least, any and all situations warrant a good junk punch, just for giggles. We see the male anatomy as some gross, disgusting, very expendable piece of meat, and males internalize this hatred and disgust with outrageous expressions over their own genitalia. Guys verbally disrespect their own anatomy with appalling statements every day. I was talking to a coworker the other day who told me that he would rather stick his dick in a cheese grater than clean a mess in the bathroom. Wow, so you'd rather have little pieces of your tender anatomy chiseled away like dairy strands atop a pizza instead of mop a floor. Really? I've heard people direct more value and compassion at fingernail clippings than male genitalia. I've heard guys reference such genital mutilation of themselves in conversation countless times. Rather than go to the in-laws, or wait in line at the DMV, or vacuum the car out, guys would rather drill a hole through their dick, or stick their dick in an angry porcupine, or slam their dick in a door, or cut their balls off with tweezers, or give their left or right nut for anything and everything ranging from a date with a supermodel to a stick of juicy fruit gum. Yeah, believe it. Really? Do females disrespect their anatomy in any way at all similar to this in everyday chit-chat? I mean, maybe I'm just not very well traveled, but I don't hear cut her boobs off with the rampant frequency that I hear cut his balls off in any and everyday situations and conversations. I've never heard a female say she would put her boobs in a cheese grater rather than mop a floor. I've never heard a female say she would rather drill a hole in a boob or slam a boob in a door or stick an angry porcupine up her vagina instead of going to the in-laws or cleaning the car out. I've never heard a female say she would give her left or right ovary to have a date with a model or for a stick of juicy fruit gum. Yeah, go on. Tell me I'm wrong concerning this issue. Try and tell me there is not a discrepancy here, that males are not influenced by the negativity surrounding the male genitalia, and thus they devalue and disrespect the male genitalia, including their own. Tell me that they do not internalize this contempt of their genitalia and then display this contempt with such slanderous, devaluing statements. Males all day long will say that they'd take a kick to the balls rather than do some mundane chore or task. Funny, I don't hear females say that they'd rather take a kick to the boobs instead of do something that they don't want to do. I remember an old acquaintance of mine who was lamenting his lack of romantic interactions, and he conveyed his discontent by saying, "I may as well cut it off. I'm never going to use it again." I have heard this particular sentiment from males who have been dateless for extended periods of time. What? Huh? I've never heard a dateless female lamenting a lack of romance by saying, "I may as well cut my clit or tits off. I'm never going to use them again." Females do not alter or mutilate or threaten self-removal of their own genitalia when they don't receive attention or validation from males. I was told about a fairly well-known 19th century poet who had written about how a man cuts his balls off despite his cheating lover and flushes them down the toilet. In fact, there is quite a lot of various poetry about castration. I don't read any female poetry talking about cutting a boob off or a labial lip off and flushing it down the toilet out of spite for a cheating lover and then calling it freedom. Quite a stark contrast in the amount of respect either sex displays for their own genitalia. Oh, but once again, it's so much more than talk or representations in movies or entertainment. Here is where all the negativity from our entertainment, our society, our culture traverses the gulf into reality. How about some real-world examples that you can sink your teeth into? Okay, one guy cuts off his testicles before a wedding, then wanders into the church. The symbolic irony cannot be overlooked. Most guys are symbolically emasculated or neutered by marriage. This guy simply enacted it physically. Another guy cuts off his testicles as per a wager over a sporting event. A Chinese man cuts off one of his testicles, apparently to end a heated argument with his wife. Yes, really. I don't see females cutting off boobs before weddings, or cutting off genitalia over sporting events, or to end arguments with husbands. There have been more males than we even know about who have carved up their own genitalia. Other males disrespect their sexual anatomy by cutting or inserting all kinds of piercings into their most sensitive areas. I saw one where a guy cuts his penis down the middle and effectively had two halves hanging there. I have seen others that damn near have a railroad spike running right through the shaft. Others have cut scrotums or put implants under the skin. Not surprisingly, I have not seen females cut up their labias or vulvas or cut a breast down the middle, then displayed it on body modification sites. Society fervently suggests to everyone how disgusting and worthless the male anatomy is. So why the hell not carve up that nasty piece of flesh? Not only do males carve themselves up, females love to injure male genitalia as well. and individual females injuring or mutilating male genitalia garners approval from other females, and it bolsters the morale of the female collective. On the radio one day, I heard of an Indian woman who cut off her husband's genitalia. Then, obviously, we have the lady who drugged, then cut off her husband's penis and threw it in the garbage disposal, apparently because he wanted to file for divorce. This man's pain and assault is further impugned as females make light of it on a talk show. Have you ever heard of a guy upset over impending divorce, cut off a female's boob, and put it in the garbage disposal, and then a male talk show just laugh it up over the whole affair? Really? Are you kidding me? I read another story about a Chinese lady doing the same thing to her husband, albeit without the garbage disposal ending. I have been regaled with accounts of workers pouring hot liquids, hitting, even cutting the genitals of elderly males in old folks' homes. I have been told this by people who worked there and witnessed such abuses. Yet in this capacity, much like with infants or toddlers, where the subject is more or less helpless against abuse, the abuser can easily play it off. Oh, Mr. Jones fell while getting into the tub. That's why his testicles are crushed. Mr. Franklin spilled hot coffee on his groin. That's why his genitals are burned. No, apparently mistreatment of elderly males' genitalia is a frequent occurrence and perpetrated by females who can't stand guys and hate their job cleaning up old people. Yeah, believe it. And the list of offenders is not limited to jaded wives or girlfriends or disgruntled employees. Mothers injure their sons' genitalia as well. Yes, mothers, that holiest of holy positions humans can aspire to. A mother's love and selfless actions are beyond reproach in our society. Yeah, well, apparently not everybody received that memo. One mother got angry at her son and yanked on his genitals so hard she nearly pulled his scrotum off. She then tried to superglue everything back together and sent him off to bed. Nighty-night, sweetie. I remember reading about another gal who had argued with her son's father about circumcision. She wanted to do it, surprise, surprise, and the father was opposed to it. So apparently, with the father gone, she tried to do it herself and botches the job, removing all his genitalia. Later, when the 5-month-old infant was found by somebody else barely clinging to life, she blames it on the dog. Many mothers are most definitely bigoted harbingers of hatred and bias towards the male genitalia because, after all, mothers are still female, which predisposes them to certain biases against males. Apparently, a female's sex still supersedes her exalted role as mother when it comes to value and compassion placed upon males, including that of their own offspring. Yet we should never, ever question a mother's love or intentions towards her children. That's sacrilege. Oh, definitely question, even suspect fathers of wrongdoing or ill intent towards children, especially abuse or molestation. But mommies are above petty prejudice and can put aside their bigotries for the well-being of offspring. Their love for their offspring is hallowed ground above the law. Yeah. Well, I read about another female who beat up her 3-year-old son and burned his genitals with a lighter. Apparently, potty training wasn't going so well. She eventually succeeded in killing the helpless boy. Another gal took her flat iron, used for straightening hair, and put it around her son's genitals, severely burning the 10-month-old's most sensitive and private parts. Another mommy poured hot oil over her son's genitalia, severely burning his genitals and in turn his feet when it dripped down onto them. And of course this mommy then hid these horrifying injuries for about a week. I remember hearing stories from a family member who is a nurse about many a young boy coming into the ER because his mother had poured boiling water over his genitalia as punishment for potty training failure, amongst many other reasons. I came across a blog where a mother is touting, "I almost ripped my son's penis off." She then proceeds to write about her gallant adventures of yanking her son's foreskin too hard. I almost turned my boy into a eunuch. It's not so terrible though. At least he's too young to know what he'd be missing. And at least he likes to sing, she writes. Wow, really? Yeah. And people responded to her blog with words of sympathy for her after this jovial rendition of treating her toddler son's anatomy with careless disregard. Oh, you poor dear lady, can't imagine what you went through. Then people started blogging about the nuisance of foreskin cleaning, and other mothers jumped in using blatant, demeaning terminology like wiener or thingy and pecker to describe their son's anatomy. Children whom they, being the mommy, are supposed to love beyond words. Yeah, well, these mommies are referring to the anatomy of their little angels with derogatory, patronizing monikers. It then turned into a praise session for daughters rather than sons. They're cleaner, they're more precious, they can chew gum better, blah, blah, blah. What if a father was blogging about nearly maiming the genitalia of his daughter, then sarcastically blogs, "Oh, it's not so terrible. At least she's too young to know what she'd be missing." After which, other fathers started sympathizing with each other over the loathsome task of cleaning their daughter's genitalia and using such condescending terminology as snatch or cooter, and then go on to praise sons over daughters. Yeah, how would that go over? I read about another mommy who burned the nipples off her mentally challenged 18-year-old son and burned his penis to the point of permanent nerve damage and disfiguration. Oh, and she made him eat worms and feces. It's actually easier for females to exercise male devaluation against a helpless male, like a toddler or a mentally challenged or elderly male. Because you see, females might have a more difficult time injuring the genitalia of a full-grown male, because he might put up a wee little bit of resistance, unless you drug or catch him sleeping, which, incidentally, is the state females prefer males in for the removal of their genitalia against their will. However, an infant or toddler son, well, quite simply, they have free reign over the anatomy of this needy, crying little male. Free reign over anatomy that they can't stand on this creature that they probably never wanted in the first place. Do you think the devaluing and mockery of the male anatomy in our culture has any bearing on mothers injuring their sons in that specific area? Do you think the rampant disgust we display for the male genitalia has any influence on the average person? Do you think the slander or groin shots or mutilations of male genitalia in books or movies or on the internet possibly has any persuasion on the opinions of the general populace, to the point where females take out their hatred of males on the genitalia of helpless boys, the elderly, or drugged husbands? Go ahead, try and tell me I'm wrong, that I am totally off base here. However, I haven't read anything about fathers pouring hot oil or boiling water on his daughter's labia. I haven't heard of any father trying to rip off his daughter's vulva, then superglue it back together and send little princess off to bed. I haven't heard of a father taking a flat iron or lighter to his daughter's vulva. I have not heard of a father cutting off nipples or removing a labia or cutting off the clitoris of his daughter and then blaming it on the dog. Nor have I heard of husbands cutting off the breasts of sleeping or drugged wives, and then have a talk show and national audience of men laughing and joking about such assaults. Yes, there are fathers who abuse their daughters, or husbands and boyfriends who do the same. And indeed, all abuse is reprehensible and wrong. Still, look at where the anger or hatred is directed. Females are directing their rage at male genitalia. Yet I don't see misogynists directing their anger at female genitalia through mutilation. Yes, some degenerate males sexually abuse or molest females. However, they are not trying to remove the anatomy of the victims. There is a stark difference in the hatred being displayed by either sex. You hate males, you destroy the very thing that makes them male. And misandry predicts exactly such behavior. And so we, society, quite effectively strike at the very anatomical structure that defines one as male. You see, we desire more than mere punishment upon the male sex. We desire to erase manhood entirely. I do not see the same fervent disgust aimed at female genitalia of girls or women. I have stated before, and I will again, our disproportionate defamation of the male genitalia juxtaposed with our exaltation of the female genitalia points out how we devalue males on a wholesale level. And this alone validates my purpose, which is to point out male devaluation in our society, which leads to male disposability. I posit that anyone who injures male sexual anatomy has such a pronounced dislike of males that they seek to erase maleness by removal of their anatomy. If you detest unicorns and you want to damage them, you're not going to assault their mane or tail or hoofs. You're going to impugn the very structure that separates a unicorn from a horse: the horn. Females who mutilate male genitalia are more malicious than the average entitled princess. They are attempting to neuter males and strip them of identity and worth, thus rendering them romantically and sexually useless, sentencing them to a freakish existence of misery. And guess what? All of this starts with bigoted thought. Who hasn't thought or jested about injuring male genitalia? It's a national pastime, for crying out loud, especially in the wake of male infidelity. I have been told innumerable times that a female's knee-jerk reaction to a cheating male is to castrate him. Again, we have ball removal. Cutting balls off, removing balls, ripping balls off. And still other females report that their very first urge upon finding out that their man has cheated on them would be to cut his dick off. This answer seems to be the consensus answer favored amongst females. However, when I ask males the same question, what would their reaction be to finding out that their woman had cheated on them, they answer quite differently. They say things like, "Oh, I would beat up her new man," or "I would sleep with her sister or best friend." Males' immediate knee-jerk reaction to the same scenario is not "cut her vagina out." Both sexes want to punish cheating members of the opposite sex, but are you sensing any difference in the way the frustration is vented? Males seek to precipitate general distress onto female infidelity. Females seek to visit distress upon male genitalia over male infidelity. The very same parts that we mock and demean as a society and in our entertainment. Gee, is that coincidence? So much disdain and injury heaped onto the male genitalia. We devalue the male sex, and that disapproval is ultimately targeted onto their genitalia. Are we seeing the pattern yet? I mean, come on, the brake pads on my car can see the obvious campaign of male devaluation, for heck's sake. How about a few more nuggets of joy to send you on down the road with? Okie dokie artichoke, on with the show. One guy is awakened by searing pain only to find his wife ripping his scrotum open and his testicles out because she claimed infidelity. A Chinese man and woman were arguing over a parking spot, so she attacks him, grabs his jewels, and squeezes as hard as she could, telling him he would never have kids. Yeah, well, she left out the part about how he'd never see another sunset. She crushed both his testicles, and it killed him. Another woman gets high, starts thinking that the daughter's boyfriend is a child molester, so she has him restrained by a couple of accomplices, and she proceeds to stab his penis with a fork. Then, when that failed to inflict the damage that she wanted, she then fetches a box cutter. One lady took pliers to the testicles of her husband and tortured him before killing him. Another lady bit her boyfriend's testicles off after a disagreement. Of course, she doesn't recall that part of the disagreement. Oh, and it's not just heterosexuals. A gay man took a corkscrew and corkscrewed his lover's testicles. I don't see guys crushing a stranger's boob over a parking spot. I don't see stories about males biting off a girlfriend's labia or yanking off a boob because of a disagreement. I don't hear reportings of females awakening to the sight of males ripping off their boobs. I don't see stories of dudes taking forks and box cutters to the vulva of a son's girlfriend. I don't see lesbians taking corkscrews to the clitoris of a lover. And let me end this junk files with this little tidbit. There is a well-known actress who spearheaded a campaign on how She hates balls. She lends herself to an edgy crusade to neuter, not spay, neuter animals to stymie pet overpopulation and unneeded euthanizations. Yet the campaign and the internet video supporting the campaign focuses maybe 2% on animals and 98% on human males, and how worthless and nauseatingly disgusting testicles are, and how awesome castration is, especially if it were legal on human males. The actress smiles with glee and darn near climaxes in her dress when contemplating the castration of human males. Then, this little video ends with her giving a man his testicles in a jar and him shuffling away like a simp. Well, alrighty then. I want to start some charities too. Can I lightheartedly mutilate female genitalia to support my cause? I too care about the unneeded killing of animals simply because of overpopulation. Can I instead focus on spaying and then go on a tangent about the gleeful ripping of uteruses out of human female stomachs? Hey, I wonder, can I save the rainforest under the guise of ripping ovaries out as well? Alrighty then. And what if we run a campaign against breast cancer and make a video about how disgusting and detrimental breasts really are, and how fantastic it would be if we could legally cut them off the chests of human females? How about that? Then, at the end of that promotional video, we can have a smug, condescending man hand a female her breasts in a jar and then have her shuffle off to girls' night out. Oh yeah, that's some pretty funny stuff right there, huh? What a hoot! From popular entertainment to real life, these are just a few of the occurrences taking place. No, male genital mockery and mutilation is not simply happening in our entertainment. It is definitely happening in real life. Now, tell me, we don't hate males. We don't devalue males en masse via their genitalia. Yeah. Thank you, my friends, for joining me. Please, help me spread these red pills to the world. My friends, my brothers, stand with me, live free.